All right. Hitchhiker's Guide to Get Cancer, day 300. We're in the hospital. Probably a lot of questions. We got new people here, but we have a lot of stuff going on. So, first off, my ride or die, my fiance. And we have my medical power of attorney and my BFF, Sabrina. We have some things we need to go over. So, let's jump right in. Obviously, I'm at the hospital. Where do you want to start?
Well, we can start.
With Medicaid, like chemo update?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start. So I guess where we last left off, was that Christian had the choice between starting chemo or radiation, and he chose the route of going chemo and adding the Cytoxin to his current cycles of etoposide and Avastin. We started him on that, his first week of that. And during that time, he was also still researching his other options or still investigating the radiation route, as well as seeking additional opinions from other institutions on what would still be the best path forward. Obviously, chemo seemed to be the most convenient. It would keep him out of the hospital. He could travel and do the things he loves without being confined to hospital appointments every day for 6 weeks or even traveling to Duke. So that played an important factor in his decision. So we had started, we did get some opinions back from UCLA and Dr. Liao and her team on the tumor board there of radiation oncologists as well. And they believed that radiation therapy was a good path forward for Christian and would have the biggest impact on slowing down the progression of these tumors versus the chemotherapy, which, as you know, Christian's been through quite a number of them, and they have not slowed this tumor down. So they really felt that radiation would be the next best path forward, and kind of attacking this head on. And so that, combined with a recommendation that we had gotten from Maryland for proton therapy, which is a more targeted type of radiation therapy, which actually kind of traces around the tumor burdens themselves and really targets those specific spots. That combined with 10 treatments versus getting 20 or 30 treatments, which would really only give Christian 10 consecutive days in the hospital or at appointments versus 4 to 6 weeks. So those things combined led Christian to make the decision that he wanted to go down the radiation path now and stop chemo. So we started to go down that path. They were doing the radiation mapping. They're still putting the plan together, and a tentative start date is to be determined. So that's kind of where we left off as of last time we spoke and where things left off last week.
Yeah, it'll be sooner than later that I'll be getting the radiation. And for me and Sabrina, I'd love your thoughts, and I'll kind of tee you up in a second. But anecdotally, like the idea, and I may have said this before, the idea of targeting the tumor to hopefully shrinking it to then even possibility of resection made sense to me, like specific targeting. And then when we went back to Dr. Liao at UCLA, who a lot of people remember when we spoke to her, just how she explained it, just how in line it was with the things we heard. And ultimately for me, having something local. So we have University of Maryland, we have Hopkins, just the local part. I did not want to be on a plane. I didn't want to be traveling. I didn't want to be having to have treatments far away and then not know how to respond. So ultimately, I think those were the factors that led to the decision. And Sabrina, I want your feedback, but just so everybody's kind of aware. So Sabrina, who's been a part of this entire process, she's my BFF. She's my medical power of attorney. She has a company with a background experience in rare and infectious diseases, which qualifies, GBM definitely qualifies under this. But she's definitely gonna help navigate this conversation. I wanted to just get your feedback on that with, our thought process, and you were part of all the conversations, excuse me, as we led to the decision of radiation. Is anything we missed, Sabrina?
No, I don't think there's anything we missed. I think the key sort of thing Lindsay said being that we sort of went back to Dr. Liao just to get her opinion because we had some conflicting opinions. So it's almost like we needed another opinion to sway us one way or the other. And she said some really important things. One, I think it's important to sort of note she had a brain tumor board review your diagnosis and your current or most recent MRI. And it was really them and their radio oncologists that sort of made this final suggestion and determination that radiation may be the better way to go for you. That really, it wasn't something we ever gave a good effort to, that it wasn't really ever part of your treatment plan. It was sort of the one thing that was missing. And that they do see in some patients, a good response to that. So that was really, I think, what pushed us over that sort of threshold of deciding radiation would be the best next step.
Yeah. And that was a good, I think, for us, almost surprising pull in our back pocket to like meet with her and have access to her. And it was awesome that she took the time to meet with us and to actually offer that opinion, I think, that we've been looking for. So it felt like we all came out of that meeting really comfortable with where we were at, how we were proceeding, and then immediately met with University of Maryland, started moving forward with the process. Then unexpectedly, we had Thanksgiving, and then over Thanksgiving, we already started the process of like, okay, we're gonna begin this proton therapy. We're in the midst of that process, almost like a waiting game, and Thanksgiving comes and goes. We the Monday, was it Monday after Thanksgiving?
It was this past Monday. So
Yes, so the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
We go home, and essentially I end up a series of events that end up landing me here. So went to bed, normal night, end up waking up around 4 a.m. and I was disoriented. Long story short, we believe I had a seizure at night, wake up, and I end up standing up to go to the bathroom. I'm disoriented. All the symptoms of I just had a seizure. Tried to go to the bathroom, thought I was going to pass out, extremely nauseous, had to call for Lindsay. And from there, it was essentially like just chaos, right?
Yeah.
So think it's safe to say I probably had a seizure.
Yeah, there were a lot of symptoms that Christian had when he woke up, like extreme nausea. He was dizzy. He felt like he was going to throw up. Then there were other things that he described, like his heart was racing. He felt like it was pounding out of his chest. His chest was tight. He felt like he couldn't breathe. All things that when we called the neuro-oncologist on call, they thought very much that he had a seizure. We gave him Zofran to help the nausea, and then Ativan, which was kind of like an anti-anxiety, anti-seizure drug to kind of calm him down because they felt that perhaps the chest tightness or the rapid heartbeat or him sweating and whatnot were attributed to anxiety and not anything else. And so we gave him the Ativan. He went back to sleep. He woke up feeling a little bit better. And
I just want to say that experience was the worst experience to date. My heart, I thought, was going to explode out of my chest, and I didn't know what was happening. I've never had a heart attack, but like, I don't know if that's what it feels like, but it was miserable. So fortunately that Ativan helped out. But then long story short, they sent me to the ER. So
yeah, Christian had also been experiencing shortness of breath as well, and just being easily winded and tired, just kind of even walking down the hallway. And then in talking with our nurse at Duke, advised that he go to the ER due to him being high risk for pulmonary, how do you say, pulmonary emulsion? and that he needed to get checked out immediately to rule that out due to some of the symptoms he described from the night before. So landed in the ER Monday early afternoon, got a bunch of tests done, and then can kind of, maybe if Sabrina wants to talk about where
What
they
they found?
landed with the kind of official diagnosis after all the tests were run.
Yeah, definitely. And I might just back up a little bit and just to say, like, there were some key symptoms that, you know, Christian was experiencing that Lindsay really, you couldn't let go of, right? Over the last, like, you know, a few days leading up to that Sunday night into early Monday event were the shortness of breath with increased activity, and then this chest pain that you felt, you know, following that seizure. And definitely they think it was a seizure, but there were a lot of layers that sort of we can't like make clear
Yeah.
necessarily. There's a flu involved, there was the shortness of breath, there was just a big long weekend, there was a lot of exercise. But I think those are the really like key ones that our primary nurse couldn't also sort of let go of, and what really prompted her to say, like, get to the ER pretty much ASAP. And that's what, you know, you did. So definitely going into the hospital based on that advice. And so again, upon just like immediate blood tests, once you got in there, Christian's levels, the first sort of sign that something had happened that was more than a seizure were the levels of the troponin I that were found in his heart. And that's based on, that's something that when you go into an ER or a hospital setting with these symptoms, chest pain, breathing difficulty, dizziness, lightheadedness, whatever, they're going to test for that, because even when you just go in for chest pain, they're going to automatically test for that, because they're trying to essentially figure out if you had or are having a heart attack. Those are really the primary symptoms. And so they did find high levels of troponin I. All of us have troponin in our hearts. It's a protein that, what happens is when our heart is damaged, like say in a heart attack, it releases this protein. And so that's why we can test, and that's why doctors are able to test for what levels of troponin we have in our hearts, so that we know if the heart was attacked or damaged for any reason. Again, most often because of a heart attack, but there are other reasons which kind of lead us to where we are now, meaning there was some oxygen cut off there for moments, and maybe not entirely cut off, but low levels of oxygen reaching the heart, which caused the heart to respond that way. In general, a normal level is 0.04. Christian's level was 0.4, which is, or sorry, 0.54. And the levels that you would see in a mild to severe heart attack can be anywhere from 0.4 to beyond. Even people with cardiac, like chronic heart diseases will have much higher single digit numbers of troponin for long term. So that's really what led them to then consider there might be a pulmonary embolism, which is a clot in your lungs. There may have been a heart attack. And so that triggered the CT scans, the CAT scans of his chest and his abdomen to try to find out what was going on. And it was the CAT scan that happened later in the day where they found quite a large clot in his lung, which is considered what is called a pulmonary embolism. And from there, that's all we knew at that point in time yesterday, a few hours after we landed at the ER. From there, we sort of automatically, or the doctors, the neurosurgeon got involved, automatically knew there's a couple of options. I don't think, and there were 3 of them. I can't say for sure all 3 were exactly on the table, but there were a couple of options that we talked about. The 3 being heparin, which is a blood thinner. This would be, it's an anticoagulant, so it would be used to essentially try to dissolve the clot, but also thin the blood to allow it to get past the clot. There's TPA, which is a clot buster. This is something that you get injected. It's a protein. Again, it's something you get injected directly into the clot to burst it, essentially. And this is something that's was approved for pulmonary embolisms, in fact, but also for patients with that had just had a stroke. So they really want to get in there and be able to bust up that clot. And then the third one was surgery to remove the clot, but that was never officially on the table. That was taken off almost immediately given Christian's diagnosis and sort of current health. So after a committee meeting with a number of specialists, not only the neuro-oncologist, but the neurosurgeon, the pulmonary specialists, other hematological specialists and blood experts at Hopkins, they determined the heparin was going to be the best way to go. And this is an unfractionated heparin, which is given via IV. Sometimes they give a bolus of heparin, and it's essentially a way to get a lot in your system at one time, but was not, given Christian's diagnosis, it wasn't, again, that was not on the table. That was not an option. It had to be a slow drip of heparin to avoid any bleeds in his brain. And that's really been the highest risk, and the reason Christian's still in the hospital and will be for a couple of days, so that they can monitor a possible reaction or negative side effect of that heparin being to have an excessive bleeding episode, particularly in his brain.
Good.
I can stop there. It's a lot of
No,
information.
no, that's great. It's helpful. It's thorough. I wanted to just get your perspective because we didn't talk about it too much, but obviously you were in the room in the conversation of the options. Was it clear cut for you? Did it just make sense for what the doctor had recommended? Or were there any correct, questions, or question marks for you surrounding it? Or was it just a no-brainer, this is the pathway forward?
Well, there weren't really any, it was pretty clear to me. There weren't really any questions in terms of what the options were. I think most of the questions were what the risks were. If those risks were, one thing we asked the doctor today, are they acute risks? Meaning, are they risks that we'll definitely see in the first 1, 6, 12, 24 hours, that if we don't see them, we won't see them ever again, essentially. That's not necessarily the case with heparin. However, it sort of is, in a sense, where if we were going to see a bleed, it would likely happen in the first 6, 12, 24 hours. And so they're monitoring for that. And then they can also, you're also in the hospital so that they can actually respond to that. So there are reversals. So it's essentially anti-heparin. So that they can, if there is a bleed, and there will be symptoms of that and things to look for, they're also testing, running you through a CTs every 6, 12, I think 24 hours to ensure they don't see a bleed in your brain. So my biggest sort of questions were, when is it possible to see that? And I think that was cleared up by, if we see it, it's probably going to happen in the next hours to a couple of days, until your body reaches a steady state and they know that your body can handle the blood thinner.
So basically where we are now is that Christian's going to be monitored very closely for the next 48 hours. The next 48 hours are very crucial to make sure there's no brain bleeds, to make sure that he's getting the absolute correct dosage of heparin in his body. And when the doctors feel like he is in a stable enough place and the numbers all look good and there's no bleeds, they will release him to be determined. Hopefully in the next few days, they'll send him home and he will be on self-administered ejectable blood thinners indefinitely moving forward. But really, we kind of have the next 2 days to kind of really figure out if things are going to continue to go down the right path.
Yeah, I think, I mean, so this team right here is called Team North Star. we're missing one, we're missing Chris. But like at the beginning, you know, with Sabrina being my medical power of attorney, Lindsay working with Sabrina and them together, for me, it's just given me a huge peace of mind to not have, it's so overwhelming. Like all the information is so overwhelming. And Lindsay and Sabrina have really been on top of taking in the information, helping me process the information, and it's been just the peace of mind has been invaluable. And also things like this, I could never explain any of this if it wasn't for them and what's going on. So having them break that down, you know, they've been the ones that have really helped me through this process and really the decision-making progress as well. And that's the North Star is like, are we making sure we're facing the right direction, aimed in the right direction and focused on the right things? And I think we are. And obviously having a scare like we had on Monday, like nobody wants to deal with that. These things are going to happen. Unfortunately, we just have to take them as they come. But I think it is a testament to what we have in place, the people we have in place, the due diligence we've done with the teams as well. And I will say it could have been felt much different, but because all of that, this happened to me landing in the ER, it it worked like it's supposed to work. So that is the information we have. We don't want to continue to have these situations and scares, but that's where we are. I do feel really good with where we're at. We'll continue to update you guys. Again, messages appreciated. I'm going to be in the hospital at least for the next couple of days, if not more. So messages are welcome. You just may not hear much else until we have a further update. But once we get an update, once I get home, we'll pass along another update to friends and family. But appreciate the love and the support. Do you have anything to add? Sabrina, anything to add?
No.
All right, that is day 300. We'll see you in the next video. Bye. Mess that up.